5:17. Mission, the purpose of the Bismarck Human Relations Committee is to create an atmosphere of inclusion, equality, and accessibility through education and outreach to recognize the value of a diverse community. First item on our agenda is a call for any public comment. Any public comment? Go ahead and move on with no public comment. And then second item is the approval of May 15th meeting minutes. Is that correct? May 15th? Yep. Did everybody have a chance to read those? And then can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve them.
And I'll make a second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It's fine. With those being approved, we'll move on to our partner events. Anyone want to talk about the June event recap?
Like I'm all really late. I'm here. So, and I only got to go to part of it because I had a work emergency. But I know Jason went too. Like as I left, Jason was coming, I believe, but there was a lot of people that were in attendance. They had a great program throughout the night that was gonna be happening. I heard the first speaker, Jasmine, and she did a very, very good job. She's been on our podcast before. But they did some dancing and had like food, and I mean, it looked like it was very well attended. I think that's something we should look at partnering with again. I mean, we didn't find out about it till kind of last minute, and it wasn't put on until last minute. But Geraldine is the one who put it up, so I mean, she's on the committee, so yeah. I thought it went well, and I thought it was a really good event. And it's really for our mission, because it really talked about diversity and things like that.
Yeah, I spoke to Jasmine afterwards because I wasn't able to attend either last minute, but she said pretty much the same thing. It was very well attended, and they hope to continue to do them in the future. So I would definitely, if maybe if Geraldine's here at our next one, we can kind of see if they plan on doing it again, or because who was it actually put on by? Do you remember?
Fair place.
It was.
She looks fun, yeah. And I think that we could have a booth there too, if we had enough participation or people that could go, because there was only like, I'd say 2 tables set up. One was Fair Plains Housing, one was I think Youth Works, if I remember right. So I mean, there's quite a bit of people there that would be great to get the word out about our committee and potentially looking at people that would volunteer or anything like that.
Any other comments on the Juneteenth event recap? Okay,
You know, it's not on here. And did we recap it last time, but Pride? That was between, right? We haven't had a meeting since Pride. Have we?
I'll add it down at the bottom here on there. So let's just go over that, the recap for Pride. So it was you, Jason, you,
Gabby.
Gabby, myself. I thought as a booth that went well. People seemed really like actually interested in what we were doing. Actually, one lady brought up something that she recommended that we look into, and I did not look into the if it's a factual statement. And it is a little bit broader than Bismarck, but she mentioned that the state of North Dakota does not have a law requiring all buildings to have handicapped accessible doors.
That's true.
And so she said that is something that she would be interested in us kind of taking a look at in the Bismarck area. She wasn't sure if she would ever make it to one of our meetings because I encouraged her to come here.
I'd be interested in helping with that.
But that might be something for us
I
to,
used to use a walker, and yeah, it's frustrating. Especially if you don't have somebody else to be along to help you with doors and stuff like that.
so my,
Or especially there's a lot of places that don't even have a sidewalks.
yeah, so, so that might be something that we could look at. just even at the city level, kind of see what Bismarck is currently doing. Jason, if you have any.
I don't want to speak to building code, but I would say anything new built going forward, yes, it becomes part of everyday operations. Existing buildings, that might be a different story. And I know that there can be times when decision has to be made between historic integrity and modern day offerings. And there can be exemptions in building code where historic buildings do not have to comply with modern day regulations because it compromises the historical nature of the building. So if you like, we can certainly ask our building official and bring back some information next time around of what we're doing. Okay.
I would like, just because she was someone that actually took the time to kind of bring an idea up, I think if we could, just do our due diligence on that, and
Get
otherwise.
her contact information to follow up with her.
He took ours, which that is actually brings up a great point too. Those cards that we were handing out about signing up for volunteers, she took that and was going to provide her information, but.
We're wanting for it.
I don't
If
know
it comes
if we had
across,
anyone.
I haven't seen anything, but it would come to me and Whitney and I think maybe even Melissa too.
Yeah, and there was, she had her reasons for just with some social anxiety and things like that for not wanting to attend in person but just wanted us to kind of look at it, but that was kind of one thing that stood out for me about Pride. If you guys have anything else?
Yeah, he and I volunteered together, so, there was quite a few people that came in and talked to us. And I don't know if they're gonna keep it at that location, but the only thing about where our booth was the issue, because it's right across from the music. So as people were trying to talk to us, it was hard to hear, like what they were saying or what we're trying to tell them. That was the only bad thing about where our booth is kind of placed.
Yeah,
I will say though, that the placement of the booth when they were like handing out awards and stuff was like prime time.
Right?
So like, with programs.
Yeah.
But I did like the reviews on the bags, like people were coming back and they were like, this is the bag booth, like super jolly about it, so.
they were gone by the time I got there,
Yeah.
so,
Then we got to.
yeah, I don't know what those cost, but I would say,
It's worth it.
Those were like
Those
reusable
green
tote?
bags,
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think it's because they were taking all the swag and stuff and no one else really had bags, so it was perfect.
they were nice quality. I saw someone else's. I was like, oh, I should have gotten here a little early. So definitely, yeah.
And then we had a gentleman give a recommendation as well about in a different city that he had lived in, and Jason knows him, so I don't remember his name, but he said that they did like rainbow crossing walks.
Mhm.
And so that might be something, if we do like, I think he said like volunteers to paint it or something, I don't know. He had like a whole plan and it was just something that was interesting and seemed pretty doable.
Did I understand you said rainbow crosswalks?
Yeah,
Okay.
so instead of just the white, it would be
Yep.
like rainbow.
Permanent or
Um,
were they temporary for certain events?
I believe it was permanent.
Okay.
I know I do.
Kind of like when they use the chalk, is that what I'm?
It'd be.
It's permanent paint, yeah.
I do know that a lot of cities do them temporary, like just for the month of June as well too, though.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's ways to do it so it would last 30 or, 45 days and then wear off, but somebody could research that.
I don't know, there's something for the highway patrol, because I was walking the boyfriend who works the highway patrol, and he said there's some type of paint you can use that'll wear off that, like after
Yeah.
so long, because that's what they use when they mark accidents.
Mhm.
So it wears off after so long. I thought his was a little bit longer than that, but
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
Yeah.
There was a temporary demonstration a few years ago where folks from the engineering department and the downtowners got together and used, it was actually just tempera paint. And created shorter crosswalks by painting these bulb outs. So basically it was an area where cars weren't supposed to drive, and it was at the intersection of Fifth and Main. The idea was that when you shorten the crosswalks, you make it easier for pedestrians that are getting one side to the other. They did it with bright red and yellow paint, and after a good washout, So,
My one pushback with that is that like people in the LGBTQ plus community aren't just LGBTQ plus in June or for a special event.
Right.
So like pushing to have that as like a staple in the community, I think would say a lot. Also doing something with the downtowners would be like fun.
Yeah.
Are they just a nonprofit or are they any affiliation with the city?
so again, no funding from the city, so they actually have two arms. They have both are nonprofit, they have a foundation, and then they have their association. The association is where that becomes the voice of the downtown businesses, and then the foundation is more about, raising funds and accepting grants and things like that, so. The association side of things does street fair, for example, they do street fair every, I think this year is the 50th year for street fair. So,
That's cool.
but then they also do, it used to be called Beers and Boutiques, now they're calling it Shops and Hops or something like that, but it's you can go to different merchants downtown, and then there's
They do the art.
drink sample, the art and wine walk is theirs as well. So they do a number of events, but not so much other than street fair, not so much where there would be a booth per se. So I guess you'd have to get creative on how you would participate with that. But
Were you thinking, working with them on the crosswalk? Is
A
that-
crosswalk or some type of event,
I know Don Cobb works for them, but who's the other one that always shows up to commission meetings?
Kate Herzog is, so Dawn is the CEO and Kate is the COO, the Chief
What
Executive
is that?
Officer and the Chief Operational Officer. It's titles, basically separating. Dawn does more of the activities and events, and Kate does more of the government engagement and meetings and consulting work and that sort of. So,
My friend Melissa's on it too.
and they have boards of directors for both.
Your friends on the board, or
Board, yeah.
I don't know if I want to reach out to her to see.
I mean, even if we just did, like, for us to do, I don't know, like, how it falls in the bylaws, but like a brainstorming session where we would just like get together and like invite some other organizations where we could talk about like needs of the community and how we could partner together to do something that would be Bismarck based, but like stronger. That makes sense? If you have like their support base, which is pretty loyal, and then, as we're building, we're really trying to build like awareness of our committee right now. I mean, even doing like a listening session, so like those two ideas that we got from, community members, like inviting community members, I know they have public comment, but being intentional, like, hey, we would love to come hear your concerns about the city or ideas that you would like to incorporate to make it more celebratory of diversity and inclusive.
And then I think not only, I don't know if we want to do it in person or if we're looking for a remote or a combination, but I think you need to do remote as an option for people that have social anxiety and wouldn't want.
Yeah.
100%.
Because we could actually look at that as something where, I would assume we could possibly do it almost like a committee where it's not like the whole, not our subcommittee, excuse me, could meet, say, the downtowners, or if we wanted to just host a special I don't know what you'd call it, session or whatever, where we're very intentional with who we invite, downtowners, other specific groups that we would really love to partner with and have, say, hey, we would love your representatives to come and help us help you.
Yeah.
So whether we want to meet one-on-one with certain ones or just a public, but like very intentional with our invite.
And I love Sergio's comment too, because we could have like a suggestion piece like on the website. And then at the end of your podcast, you could be like, hey, don't forget to leave a suggestion on the website if you have an idea that we could, infuse or incorporate or work on. And that could be part of, some of the pieces that we strive for. Because like doing a rainbow painted crosswalk in the city, I mean, it seems pretty basic, but I would say it'd probably be kind of a challenge because we were working on a mural with a couple of different organizations that was gonna go down by the river and the city. Do you know what mural I'm talking about?
Yeah, it was supposed to be last summer.
Yeah, yep. So I was on the board for that.
the federal highway got involved and shut it down because the
Wow.
bridge. It was the Grant Marsh Bridge, so it was near the landing, and that bridge is owned by the federal highway. It's not the cities, it's not the states, and I don't know if there was a step missed in the review process or something, but there was a very tight window in which all things could have lined up, and it just didn't. But it didn't. I think it's been postponed.
Postponed, yeah.
The rule is to still do it, it's just not now.
Yeah, and so the main person in there, George Gillette, is the young man that we interviewed for our Boys with Braids initiative for Bismarck Public Schools, and then the National Indian Education Association. So the idea is that you'll see the mural and then like George, and then you'll have a link to that video there too with the marquee. Yeah, that was some cool off topic.
Cause that was gonna be my question about a crosswalk, the logistics of it. Especially in, I just read that North Dakota this year is one of the top 5 states for harshest anti-LGBTQ laws. So that's, so like logistically, like, what's the approval process? City commission, like, so that doesn't mean we don't try, right?
And that's part of it is like, given the climate, we should be striving to, raise awareness in those areas.
So. Because, okay. So what follow-up action do I need? Do we need?
Sorry, my ADHD is like all over.
And I'm the same way too. Like, so what follow-up do we need? Like, do we want to set up a subcommittee for maybe? I feel like summer might be a hard time to meet.
Mhm.
People are busy, but like maybe it's something we could start looking at early fall to maybe meet with the downtowners as a subcommittee or something like
I
that.
would say maybe doing like, putting together like a proposal for a subcommittee
Okay,
and then talking about it next meeting. So then like having that outlined so that we can talk about it and get insight instead of spending our entire meeting time, kind of brainstorming. Which I just kind of did, I'm sorry.
do you want to do that or would you like?
Yeah, I can do it.
Okay.
You need help with that, but feel free to reach out.
Absolutely.
So,
Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion on Pride or Juneteenth recaps? Okay, so the Fargo Human Rights Committee collaboration, I was not here for that meeting. I did read the minutes, but does anyone have any comment on that?
Jason was gonna reach out since he's the one with the contact with the Human Relations Committee. And I think we're also waiting for Minot, and that was approved as far as that goes too. And did you talk to Scott?
yes, I did. Finally. I talked to Scott Burlingame, who is an alderman in Minot. They had a human rights committee formed in 1979, but it quietly dissolved over the years because there was no interest. So they just reactivated that rather than try to form something new. But the personalities involved in the committee formation are so involved, they go from far left to far right. And they're struggling. So I told him, I said, well, we're not just about LGBTQ, we're about diversity for everybody. And he asked if I'd be interested in coming up and talking to them at their meeting, and I said I would. And I also extended an olive branch and said we'd be interested in possibly collaborating with their group when they figure out what they're gonna do.
Have they had any meetings or anything?
And it was contentious.
Well, not ours is not.
So, yeah, he said that it's gonna be a hard road because the right thing said everything is about LGBTQ, and even like Carrie Evans is identifies as LGBTQ. She's on the committee. And she said that it's not just about LGBTQ, it's about everybody. So, yeah, so anyway, I volunteered to drive out there and talk to their group when they meet. He said he would take that to them and make that offer. So,
Just keep us updated on that.
can do.
Jason, are there any logistics we need to be aware of for? No, okay. Okay. Moving on to the Autumn Fest parade participation.
When is Autumn Fest?
Typically, it's the second or third weekend in September. it generally aligns with street fair. This year is street fair like 18th and 19th or something like that.
Isn't the power like the week before?
Generally, yes. Powwow is typically the second weekend in September, or the first weekend following Labor Day. And then street fair is usually following powwow. So you said the 8th,
Yeah, I believe it's the 8th.
is that Thursday?
That should be a Friday because
That's Thursday,
that is a Friday
Friday the 8th.
because I'm on the National Johnson Valley Board of Directors and I have to go to the conference in Chicago.
Right.
So I'll be gone.
So then street fair must be the 15th and 16th.
That is, the yeah, street
So
fair.
then Autumn Fest Parade is probably the 16th. Although I haven't seen anything yet. The application would go to our police department. Whenever the organizer would submit it.
Must be that week, so.
Yeah, roll that weekend, so.
It's September, oh no, never mind, that was 2022.
Okay, go on.
So that same weekend is generally when it is though, so that's at the 17th, so then does that mean this year would be the 16th? That Saturday.
Cause yeah, it's an autumn fest that had the dates for, or the street fair for 15, 16, but not for I don't see anything about this year's parade.
It may not be announced yet either.
Yeah.
Scott Johnson is the organizer of that. It has, the only coordination with the city is that he has to get a permit and police and public works do their jobs.
I think 4 of us aren't available. Sassy, did you say you weren't?
If it's the following weekend, it's still up in the air because I might still be in Chicago.
I'm not. Carl said he isn't, and you're not.
Yeah, so. It's a lot to put on.
People that aren't here.
Mhm. So,
Well, you can take one till next month. Let them decide.
Can I add one that's not on there?
yeah,
So, and it was from last time, and we didn't have a quorum. It's regarding the Matthew Shepard event with Photo Pro Musica, that Jason Toms was here to talk about. So that's, I don't know if I have, October 6th, is that right? It's the date that it actually happened.
the meeting that will happen in October 6th, I believe that will be.
That's correct.
Let's see if I look face down.
I believe it was October 6th.
Yep,
Yeah, I believe it.
that's, so they're looking to perform on October 6th,
Yes.
2023 at Trinity.
Yes. So we'll do it for October 6th. The entire piece. This is Matthew Shepard thing, for his nonprofit. What they're looking for is collaboration with them. We would collaborate with them, whether it be just getting the word out and talking about the event and partnering with them, or whether it be funding some of it. I think that's what we wanted to talk about last time, but then we didn't have a forum. And he's on his way back from Oregon performing, otherwise he would be here tonight.
So, okay. So if we help fund it. Cause it's. Sorry, I went down a rabbit hole because not knowing the dates exactly was driving me nuts. So. Just help them financially, right? Like, would we have
Doing a donation, I don't, there's not like sponsorships or
no
anything like
booth
that.
or anything like that?
I'm sure they'd let us have a booth if we wanted one. I mean, we've had booths at Trinity before for events, but I don't think anybody else has set up or anything like that. I can ask it, well, he's on our podcast next month.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my ask is just in case we need to man it. Cause
I would be there.
I'm gonna be there as well.
I think two of, like, the more the merrier, but I think even 2 of us would be fine. If we're gonna have a booth.
I mean, I think it's. I don't have any reason why we would not want to be involved in financially supporting him.
It's kind of a side comment. Can I say a rabbit hole?
Yep.
I'll be brief. So I'm just kind of thinking as, we're going on about, making sure that we're building like, recognition and support of, our committee. What if we had like a circle of like diversity or inclusion and each like pie, we can talk about like, this is LGBTQ plus, this is, New Americans, this is Indigenous community, and then we can show where our efforts go. And so then like, and I'm just thinking visually, we can be like financial donor for this event, financial donor for like the powwow, and so we can show, in like moving forward, like thinking about how we can, you know what I mean?
So people can't say we're just all about one particular item.
Yeah, and then it's like visually and it's well rounded, if that makes sense.
Because not everything is financial, and we do put time towards it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you could put the time we put towards maybe something too, I don't know. Because it's not, we don't financially support a lot of things.
Right.
This is just like more of a forward thinking.
Yeah, I for our annual report, you can, or even the website and things like that.
Yep. And I gotta say names are all for you.
When he was here, to be discussed like their financial need, or what dollar amount was brought up?
Didn't bring up the dollar.
Okay, do we know what our budget is, Jason?
Whitney could tell us. She'll look.
Once we hear that, then I think we can make a motion. And
Is the budget approved for next year, or are they still doing the election?
We just introduced it at the last commission meeting, last week, Tuesday. We'll be back for discussion next week, Tuesday. We don't know what the commissioners want to do with it, but if they're comfortable with the way it's recommended, it would be passed as a preliminary budget, which then basically sets the ceiling. Cannot add anything to the budget, but we can remove things before the final approval, which would be in September. So really by setting the ceiling, it kind of sends a signal to Burley County and the auditor's office and all of that, what the collections would look like from the city of Bismarck going forward.
When is the next budget meeting?
Tuesday, next week.
Next week, Tuesday?
I was gonna go to the city commission meeting to hear about the transit, but I heard transit one in particular, but I heard they're gonna move that.
Well, because they want to get since Mandan uses it, that they want to have Mandan or the Mandan commissioners.
Oh, you have some cash too.
25% of the rides are coming from Mandan. So to fill the gap this year, the request was to help ask Mandan to help fill that gap too. So
If
that'll
not,
be back on the next agenda as well. Transit, paratransit.
if not, that just means more cuts.
That's services, which
Right.
means fewer
I mean,
hours.
the hours,
Like
like,
government hours. Yeah.
while we're waiting for budget, I'm gonna skip over 4 really quick, and I'm gonna go to the MEI subcommittee update. Was anyone in here at that meeting?
It was the online one.
Yes.
Yeah, I was in it, I was driving. So, my memory, I'm not really recalling the details.
So maybe we can table that and have Jason, or I think Gabby was
Yep.
part of that too. So I'll have one of those give us an update.
so Jason, were the scores already due for the send in for that, or how does that work? I thought it was June when we sent in.
I can't even recall the dates off the top of my head. I thought it was closer to the beginning of the fall.
Oh.
Like there was a preliminary score that came in, and that's what initiated the conversation back in May. And then I think there was, I want to say it was in September before we had to respond.
Okay.
I believe that's how it was last year, because we were in September, October before we turned everything over.
We'll go back up to 4 then while we're waiting for budget update, about building committee recognition. Does anyone have anything they want to discuss just in general about that before we start in on the podcast?
I guess I'm,
Yeah, the pub, no, just, I want to talk about the podcast when you're done.
Okay. Did you have anything, Darcy? What building committee recognition?
a little lost with that right now.
Oh, sorry, so I thought you were gonna say something at the same
I'm
time.
interrupted by raising my hand, sorry.
No, it's okay.
Okay, so we'll talk about the podcast.
Scott from Minot says they love our podcast up there.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah. You better look at the recording. Scott. This one's for you.
Yeah, yeah, he said it's been very well received in the Minot.
That's awesome, so.
Give him a shout out.
Scott, the next one.
Say something.
Scott from Minot. So I've got quite a bit. Quite a bit on the podcast, and some of this, Jason, if this does not need to be here, you can just like wave at me and we can chat about it. But first and foremost, like, I'm gonna ask an honest question here. How many of you have actually listened to our podcast?
I've started,
Okay,
but I'm not all the way through.
okay, but have you listened to one episode? Okay, so, I was looking, Sergiana and I attended some producer meetup from Dakota Media Access last week. We were the only two talk podcast people at that group. They were all music folks, but so I kind of went in. We do the hosting, and I now do the editing and the uploading to the cloud, not the radio. And so I have access to see our statistics now. And our first like 6 podcasts, we were, based on what I can see, just on the cloud. Again, I have no concept of how many are listening on the radio. We're averaging, well, anywhere from 25 to 50 listeners is what those statistics were showing us per episode. Our last like 6 or 7, it's been less than 10 people. And I don't want to like toot our horn here, but we are pretty good. Like they're getting better each podcast. Just like us as hosts, we're more comfortable. We've had incredible guests. And so we really just need some help in like, how do we get the word out about this? Because the people that are listening to it are saying the exact same thing. There is no one, and then like Dakota Media Access, nobody else is doing it in Bismarck. They are extremely impressed with, we'll say Ben is, I don't know if the whole group there, I don't want to speak for all of them. He's very impressed with what we're doing.
More on social media.
Well, and that was one of my questions I have is, being that we fall under the HRC, which does not have its own social media, are we authorized to, and we, like, I would be happy to manage it and make Sargon and co-manage it. Are we allowed to create social media, whether it's a Facebook account or an IG account, for the podcast specifically?
I can support like content creation.
Yeah.
That's a good question. We've not had anything like that in the past.
Because-
Typically, everything has been done, I'll say secondhand through the city's account.
Because when we've talked to other producers, they said that's the number way to get your listeners is to have your own account, rate people and have it on Facebook separately.
Yep, so not like my account, not me posting, but just having a podcast specific thing, and if it's owned by this, like Kaylin in the city of Bismarck, but not wanting to put a workload on them. There's things that, you know, we could do to help relieve that load when it comes to content creation, and really it's just about sharing. To me, it's pretty simple. We share our podcast, we share about the people we have on our podcast.
But we can also share events that we participate in. things like-
What Keelan puts on the city of Bismarck page is here I rated. So he's not, we're the ones who are getting the rate up. Actually, our highest rating podcast was like 200, and that was one that was Megan Mann, and she shared it on the Hope Matter specific website. We think that's why that one is so high.
So
So we're encouraging our guests now to share it on their business pages as well.
So, this just an idea, like partnerships, like you're talking about, like with those guests and, having them share when they're, you know, guests, but then also could they share out like monthly? I don't know if it's feasible or anything, but like, could we have like a partnership with Pride Dakota? Where, you know, they have like Pride Dakota stickers on their thing. I don't know if they have a website, but
Yeah, they do.
could we like have something on their website where it's maybe like an advertisement or,
Cause they're on Facebook.
yeah, so just like things like that we could do that would be like, maybe like out of the box, like thinking for, you know, advertising, how we can be, say, ahead of people and in front of them.
Plus the agriculture, the commissioner, it's on their website too.
Yep, so like things like, you know, people who support Pride Dakota are gonna support something like local podcasts, you know?
I can talk to like Mental Health Advocacy Network that I'm a part of and see if they'd be willing to share it on their sites and social media as well.
Because the last person we had was, Aaron, and he's Hummel with the Highway Patrol. And I sent a link to his, and then I asked him if they had someone, the public information officer, if they could share it on the Highway Patrol site. He's on vacation, I think he's back tomorrow, so we'll see what their response is, if they will. But that will get a huge number of people.
And then have it in the Bismarck Public Schools newsletter as well.
See, and because like for us, the social media would be the easiest way, but we understand the nuance with it falling under, you know, the city, but we don't want the city of Bismarck's page then to be all,
Right.
These are your neighbors, where if we could have our own. And it would then, I think it would have to strictly stick with what the people we're covering and the podcast specifically, just so that we're not overstepping anything that
Yeah,
can't.
that's, I think the only thing that we would put on there is who's up and coming as far as our hosts, so people can plan, like, hey, Senator Sean Clary is coming up like next week or whatever.
Yeah,
I wanna listen to his podcast or whatever.
and then, cause there's the radio, which I'm gonna be honest, like, I don't promote the radio just because it's hard. I promote the on-demand, because anyone can listen to it at any time. But so that would be a question that I had, Jason, for the city, and then,
Kalen is out of the office until Wednesday.
Okay.
But I can certainly ask him what his thoughts are. I know internally, with departments, with staff, content managers, things like that for our website, he has been very willing to give people the keys to the kingdom because it just creates less work for him. This is a question I don't think we've ever been asked before, and I don't want to get too bureaucratic, but at the same time, we gotta just talk through all the bits and pieces that could come with it. But I get, what I wrote here is the goal is to help promote the podcast. And how do we get to that as the result? I think that's the big question. If this is one way, then maybe this is the way.
Basically, all the producers had said that's the way, cause I had asked that question in the meeting. See, how
If it makes sense, I get it, because then you've got a very focused.
a lot of them do it, like, one guy does it daily, he records it daily, I'm like, oh, you're kidding me. I'm like, we're at 12, yay,
That's a steamer.
yeah, it's crazy.
Do you still need more people to interview?
well,
We
we're
are-
working on it. I think we've got many people to interview this kind of.
So I got two more names you could add to your list.
So what I would do with that is just shoot us an email.
Okay.
Cause it helps
Leave
us.
it on a spreadsheet, because we try not to get like people in the same genre.
Yep.
Get close together.
And one thing you could add to Kalen too, like just with that is like, even if he wants to run it, but I'm happy to create the content, send it to him, he can proof it and then post it. Cause I am a communications specialist, so I do have some basic understanding, you know, that.
You talk good.
At the top.
You talked
good.
I do, yeah, she talked well.
Okay, and then, so, and that is probably another question for Kalen then, is, what access he has for Adobe, because I have had to take on a financial cost to edit this podcast. There is a free program called Audacity, but it does not work.
All the features.
It doesn't work for my brain, we'll say. It takes way too long, and then the quality is not what you get with Adobe. And I was talking to someone at some event that said the city of Bismarck may already have it. So maybe that's something where,
You've got the full Adobe Creative Suite.
Yep.
So
and so do I now, since I had to add it. So it's costing me roughly an additional $22 a month just to edit our podcast. And I hate asking for that to be reimbursed, but it does add up. I also don't know if he could just share his login for audition specifically. But so maybe that's something I could talk through with Kaylin, and then if we decide he can't share, maybe we come back
I think that's a totally fair ask.
and ask for a reimbursement, for
The quality of it since we've switched, I think is way better.
one of the other listeners even said, or producers even said the quality is better.
but to others,
Some use
They send it-
Audacity and some use
they send-
Audition.
Or they send it to Ben and he does it for them. They'd rather us produce our own.
But Ben is stopping doing that for, they're getting everybody off on their own.
And a lot of theirs are different because they have music where they have to download or we just.
Like I have to go through and line up and edit and cut out.
For her, she had a comment before people. Well, Michelle having a hot flash in our last episode.
So there's, I mean, and that's part of the problem too, is like, I understand that I could use Audacity, but when it takes me 3 hours to do something in Audacity, but it takes me 20 minutes to do it in Audition.
It's user intensive.
Yeah,
I think it's a fair ask.
so I think if maybe I'll talk with Kaylin about that and then maybe come back next month with an ask for that, but, podcast, anything else?
You don't know who our guests are? We haven't talked to our
Go
guests.
for it. Go again.
So Erin Hummel from the, North Dakota Highway Patrol, his airs tomorrow. Starts. And then after him is Michelle Erickson from the Views Adult Resource Center. We just finished hers. And then we tape our next one tomorrow and it's Senator Sean Clary.
Oh, good.
And then after that, it is Jason Toms
And Sassy.
and then Sassy.
Sean Cleary just got appointed by legislative management to the Committee for Protection and Advocacy.
And I found out his daughter is named after his grandmother who was a politician. So I'm gonna use that, asking him about that tomorrow.
And then in September, I think we're swinging big for a couple, it sounds like we do have a female colonel from the National Guard who has agreed, we're just gotta line up our dates. To talk about the importance of diversity, in the National Guard specifically here, but then we're also aiming for lieutenant governor. Yeah, we would love to get her on there as well.
Good deal.
That's kind of some of our next big picture ones.
Wayne I.
Because I can't encourage you like enough to listen to it. I know this sounds very arrogant, but it's good. I didn't listen to it at all until I had to start editing it. And it's good. There's some great conversations
That
there.
doesn't give compliments without them being deserved. So.
Guests are like, we invest, especially Tia. But it's a lot of time in this.
Let's be real. She does all the like, she's the type A, like, I'm like winging, I'll show up and wing it if I could. She's organized and on track with all the questions.
Think of you for our check mix.
We are a very good team, yes. So,
Kudos to you for both taking that on.
I mean, and all our guests have been amazing and have, like, their niche as far as what topic they're covering, they're all experts. We've been so lucky.
yeah.
Like, I've never been like, why the heck do we invite this person? They're all like so knowledgeable and, yeah.
And we're really covering a wide, like, I think when people hear a podcast on diversity and equality, they're going to assume that it's all one thing or another, but we're bringing in, I mean, we have such a wide variety of people, law enforcement, everything. So it's just been it's been great.
You're bringing in diversity.
We're bringing in diversity in our podcast about diversity.
It's so funny that people like have such a narrow focus on what diversity is.
So I think,
And I
But
love
we need
that
posters.
because people's answers are.
Can we hang posters?
support the radio program.
Yeah.
I don't see
Like
why not.
QR code,
Sure.
plaster them downtown and other areas.
appropriately designated places for public displays. of
With permission?
information.
Yes, sir, that's what I meant. I was summarizing, thank you for
Well,
elaborating.
Please.
Many buildings, okay, Nathan?
We'll put one up to.
And then Gabby sent us, yes, if you guys can email us if you have potential guests, because Gabby sent us 3 different groups of guests that would be amazing eventually. So, and she sent me their contact information today.
I'll do that. I'll confirm before I send it that I can use, give you their information.
One thing from somebody that's not so far on the tech side of things, than we have on the low tech side of things, some of us consume your program over the good old fashioned airwaves, that 102.5 FM. So my numbers won't register in your fancy cloud.
Everyone need to, I don't get the cloud.
So, and
Could you look at the radio data?
no, so I was just gonna say that Dakota Media, because they are non-commercial, they do not have Nielsen ratings, they have no tracking, they just have a hope that everyone's listening at the same time. So there is no way to quantify the number of radio consumers through the traditional FM broadband. So.
Yeah.
Well, the city attorney's listening because she made it.
Yeah, the city attorney brought it up.
You know, we should be on TV, we're like,
Yeah, she did, mention that, you know, possibly we video ours. However, Dakota Media Access does not have that current capacity to add to any other podcast, and we are not gonna push that, so we are happy with it.
I think your guests are actually can be a lot more comfortable on your
100% agree.
Yeah.
For you as hosts to do this again and again and again becomes routine. For them to walk in, they're scared in some cases because it's unlike anything they've ever done before. So
I did a podcast interview for FASD 2 weeks ago, and there's, I think, tomorrow. And I was freaking out. And she's like, oh, don't worry about it. This is just, like, yeah, but you've been doing this for like 5 years. And yeah,
I mean, that was one thing we were thinking for what will be our like 1 year, 1 year anniversary of the podcast, of bringing in either of the Jasons to interview us on why this podcast is important to us, to the city.
I
to
love
HR.
that.
So, like,
I'm not a fan of this, but yeah.
That's so exciting.
I think it's important people know like why the HRC decided we needed to do it, why we're so passionate. We put a lot into it, and I think it's important our listeners know why. So, but any questions or?
let's do it.
It's not, you know, that's nothing to, I'm the button pusher and all this stuff now. It's a little overwhelming. So, I just show up. No, you all practice.
It was grand.
Anything else about the podcast? I just ask that you share. See it on from the city of Bismarck.
So the city of Bismarck always shares it the Monday before our next one comes out. So tomorrow, yep, so today Keelan shared it on Facebook.
And
then I just
Instagram
wanna
and
share-
Twitter and LinkedIn. All of them.
And LinkedIn. Okay. Oh, yeah, I see you.
This one over here is all about, I'm just Facebook. I do have Instagram and LinkedIn though, I figured out how to share that, so.
I'm on LinkedIn too, so.
So if you guys see it, just share it, please. If you feel something. Do we have an update on the budget?
$1,246 remaining. Just a reminder, in past years, you've taken a balance at the end of somewhere close to 1,000. Offered it up to the Martin Luther King Jr. Day celebration.
And I do think that it's realistic as we're growing and actually using our budget that we can set that expectation that might be lower for Martin Luther King. Because we're in,
Doing more.
yes, I feel bad saying
It's
it.
like the finger.
So I mentioned we introduced the budget for next year at our last commission meeting. If the budget were approved the way we introduced it, this committee's annual budget would increase to $3,500.
Wow.
So not much, but it's that additional 1,000 that has historically been dedicated in January.
Oh,
So what I'm telling you is if the budget is approved, the 3,500 would be available January 1st, 2024.
And
Just
the
your
event is
intention.
February like 15.
Your intentions are, and that's how I pitched it to the budget committee was historically, this is where that extra money has gone. I would like to dedicate a set amount each year. So that's the amount,
So that would be in the next year's budget.
correct?
Awesome. So what do we have, like? We have swing left.
There's some, I don't know if it's here or if it's in the back. I think there's some. Whitney probably knows she knows what's left. Right. Oh, she went to get it, I guess.
So I'm
So,
wondering how much money we have to put towards swag for the rest of the year. We're doing any events where we want to hand it out. If we need to purchase more.
And we are.
I'm guessing we'll do another one.
In the fall, right? We talked about that. Like we did last year in October or whatever. We'll have to have some financial for that.
How much do we give to Pride? How much did it take us? How much did it cost us to sponsor
I
Pride?
thought 250.
I think it was like that, I wanna say that. What was that amount?
Is that including like swag giveaway?
No, just like the registration.
You know, what we should do is like create a calendar of events that kind of like happen and then
What's the yearly ones?
yeah. Yeah, yearly ones. And then of course, we're them for new events.
Water bottles.
Yes. I think we,
But we have bags still?
yep, so this whole box we had kept for your event in October. Okay, so you did, so it didn't all get given away.
she kind of broke it into
And I have.
different activities.
Still.
Let's get
Like
koozies,
there's a whole
stickers.
box of the notebooks. Okay. The little stickers. Not everything.
There's koozies in there.
Koozies, yeah.
Yep. There's koozies and lots of stickers on here.
I don't think we need to buy more swing then. We have that much.
Probably not for this.
Yeah, no. Jason, do you know how much we did pay the sponsor Pride?
That was 250. And that's out, that's spent.
So that's out of the number you gave us already.
Correct, 1246, thanks, Whitney.
I did say something, the one thing, when they have that booklet that they give out at Pride, we were not on it. I said something to Jason. I go, that's interesting. That we're not on it, even though we're a sponsor, so he didn't know what happened. He's like, you gotta be like, no, we're not in here.
It's unfortunate.
So, yeah.
I'm sure you think you're doing that same amount for Matthew Shepherd, like the 250.
I was gonna say 250, that's what I would say, we would probably give any. I think it'd be comparable since it's same sponsorship to an event.
And then I think we could, you know, we could come up with some type of like guidelines, whereas like if we're financially supporting an event, we could donate this much, you know, so then it's just like, you know, we don't have to fly every time.
Up to this much.
Yeah.
So we don't want to set a specified amount. Decide to donate less and have somebody complain. That's could be a topic for next month when we have more people here.
Okay, so that we need a motion then for that.
I'll make a motion to donate $250 to Dakota Trail Musica for the Matthew Shepherd event.
I'll second.
Something.
Oh, just.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, say the same.
Yep.
Okay, motion passes. Okay, next on the agenda is other business.
Do we want to come out as Human Relations Committee in support of the paratransit budget request?
What is the 250? Is that what you're saying?
275.
275?
275 this year and 245 next year.
Yeah.
Five is just under 600,000.
Yeah, they should still ask Mandan for help, but people that use paratransit deserve to have an
Oh, yeah.
opportunity to
I am off.
be in the community, so. And they
So-
can't be if they don't have transportation.
What was the difference? Like last year, what was their ask?
So the ask right now is to do a budget amendment. City would do a budget amendment for 2023, which basically means we would have to find additional dollars to support them this year.
Okay,
And then the ask is to include an additional 246,000 and change for next year as part of our 2024 budget. The way the budget was presented by the budget committee for next year, it is considered balanced, meaning the money going out is equal to the money coming in through tax collections and grants and everything else. The transit request came after our work was done. So now the commission has to go back and decide if they want to fund transit, do they either raise taxes to compensate for the balance or cut things that were recommended to save the cash to pay for it without having to raise taxes, or do nothing, or cut services. They really have four choices to kind of get through the next commission meeting. The transit discussion will be on the agenda prior to the budget discussion because the transit determination could impact the budget.
it would be sooner in the agenda.
Yes,
Because last time I read it, it was like last thing. Oh my gosh.
yeah, it'll be near the top this time. But there's some public hearings that have to happen first. But I believe transit is scheduled to be the first of those budget related items.
So it's next Tuesday at 5:15. I mean, Darcy knows what the issue is with transportation. She had to do right for me tonight. Oop.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I see my line of work, I work in our agency with people with developmental disabilities. That's the biggest concern is transportation. And transit is primarily what they use because a lot of them need handicap accessibility because they utilize wheelchairs. And there's really no other option, like there's no.
Well, and then knowing that the taxi 9,000 is folded up. And I know there's one taxi, but they charge like $20 one way. It's like, if I go to Target, it costs me like $20, where if I took the taxi, it would cost me, just one way, it would cost me like about $8.80. So it's like, you're talking like, why? I mean, it's like, it's crazy.
That's not, you have a neighborhood grocery store anymore. You have Family Dollar, but
Right. I mean, you can get some things, but not everything.
right.
So if we came out in support of that, what would that look like?
I just a letter.
No one to,
Well, you could have somebody go and speak to them, but who would,
I do know that the legislative working group is getting together.
that's the last Wednesday of the month.
I wanna say it's like the 26th, I think,
Something like that.
at the library. And basically kind of studying, making sure that the transportation is covered. And it's not just here in Bismarck, it's like everywhere.
Yeah.
Up in Minot, they have lost a lot of their services. The same way like with Barkle. So it's not just here in Bismarck.
And
You know, I almost kind of get the feeling that they would rather have you segregated than,
In the community.
right? Because like, even like talking to Trevor is that like, for instance, like, and I'll just pick on Christmas for an example, is that they start at 10:30 or 10. And then you have to be back home by 2.
there was a transportation study that actually, Sean Cleary is the senator that brought it forward.
Yeah, it's like that.
Was passed that Dorsey, I believe you testified on, I testified on, and they chose not to do it. This legislature chose not to pick it as a study.
I've heard the opposite. I've heard that they have, so I'm not sure.
No,
They
they
didn't.
chose not to.
Chose-
But we're studying the need, how to implement the study for mental health. So,
Well, and then one excuse that I get really tired of hearing is that the legislators say that they do a lot of studies with transportation. But they give it to the transportation, but they never follow through. So it's like, all these studies don't mean nothing. It's like, so whose fault is that?
Well, I know, you know, when the scrubber has that. He can be delayed getting to an appointment sometimes 2 hours, and then has to be ready to go immediately when they think he's supposed to be ready to go, not when he is ready to go.
I mean, and I gave some good ideas when I testified, like, we all have ride services where the ride service will tell you how far away the driver is. Why can't they do it with transit?
Mhm.
Because sometimes you're waiting up to like a half an hour after your pickup time should have been, and you're just sitting there, and if you're not coming out right away, then they leave you. I
Yeah.
mean, could you, yeah.
It's like you gotta pay for the no-show, plus they'll come back and get you. So it's like you're charged twice.
So are we thinking, are you saying do a letter of support to the city commissioners, or who are we saying?
I would say go to the city, it should go to the city commissioners. And if we need somebody to speak, I would be happy to get dressed up and go and speak.
I would too.
Is that, they do public comment for that again?
Yep, public comment will be available for that item because it'll be on the regular agenda. And another thing, and we did get a number of emails of support from various groups and individuals. And anytime we get something like that,
Like what groups?
I
No, I did one.
think we got 5 or 6. I don't remember all of them off the top. They're all attached to the minutes from the last meeting. And so we print them, send them to the commissioners, and we include them with the minutes as well. So they got 3 different chances to see those things. You could all comment as individuals. If there's a collective effort to put together some sort of a statement, you could. The deadline for that is tomorrow at noon. Because we've got a deadline at noon in order to get the agenda done by Wednesday. We've got to have everything tomorrow.
Ouch,
So I don't,
So it might be easier if you
did individual letters.
independently emailed our office. And then you can trust that we will get that information to the commissioners ahead of the meeting and include it. with
But
the
we don't
record.
have to have that in my new.
Correct. You could have it to us, as long as it's to us by 3:30 next week, Tuesday. They'll have a copy of it.
Okay,
So to you and Whitney,
Send it to Whitney, because I'll be out of the office next week.
slide it.
we can send one out.
Yeah, I can do that too.
And the letters of support that we saw talked about quality of life issues, why it's important. Why
Yeah,
funding
I'll
matters.
just copy paste my testimony. from-
Doesn't have to be 10 pages. Most of them were 2 paragraphs at most.
Basically, I just,
Full sentences.
I think it's,
like, could you imagine, like, you're going to see your family and you have to be there for like 11 o'clock, and you have to be on by 2 on holiday? And then
It
something,
just takes the fun out of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, who possibly would have to do this, like, ridiculous, our hours.
if you send me your testimony, just like, so I'm not spun up on it enough, I can find enough, but I'll write a letter and support to you. I would like, I would just like to know more.
I mean, it's important to the people that use the service, but I think it should be important to the community as a whole.
And you can reference yourself as a member of the Human Relations Committee. You don't necessarily say speaking on behalf of, but I think it helps to include some of the things that cause you to be.
Commissioner smells.
Shoot, on our back. Okay, so we'll do those individually then, by 8:30 next Tuesday. Anyone else have any other business? And one thing, just gonna try to keep it short, I apologize. It must just be whoever's running the meeting where we just run them up with everything.
That's right. I have time.
So, and I say this as somebody who, due to vacation and work, has missed the last 2 meetings. I know we brought it up before about the attendance policy. But does our attendance policy, does it specify excused and unexcused absences?
No, and quite frankly, the attendance thing is something that I was kind of hoping this group would drift from. It's not something any other committee or advisory committee we have even keeps track of. It was something that resulted from several meetings being canceled due to lack of quorum. So
your opinion is as long as we're meeting quorum. It doesn't matter if,
Share my 2 thoughts.
No.
My concern is we have a committee member who was on our committee, who was very involved and is no longer on our committee, even though he had applied, who would be showing up to all the meetings and other people who aren't. And aren't even at times coming to some of our events. I get it, like work and stuff, yeah, or I get it because but you are also involved in a bunch of events as well.
because that's my concern as well. The more that we are bringing up what we're doing in the community, the more interest people are showing. And we all have lives, we're all involved in a number of things. And so whether it's work, vacation, another commitment, but if people are simply not showing up because it's not a priority, I do think that, and maybe that's something that,
See, I'm just gonna say from my point of view that because of not having the transportation, that's been a real hinder for me.
yeah, and that's understandable.
And you've done what you should, you reach out to me to see if I can give you a ride, because Jason wasn't here, so. You did whatever you could to get here, Darcy, so.
But I'm just saying, in general, when it comes to even like with the events.
Oh,
it's-
yeah,
Especially that in the winter time.
Oh, last year was awful.
Yeah, I think my concern is just that we do have people who are expressing interest in wanting to be a part of this. And we seem to have people who are a part of it that don't express an interest in wanting to be a part of it, so. I guess I voiced my concern, that's all I need.
not do this, but we reach out to make sure they still want to be on it, because Nicole and Geraldine haven't been on for a couple meetings, and I don't know if they're responding to emails or not. But my concern is that they're okay, first of all, because, and they still want to be involved. It's not gonna hurt our feelings if they say that they want to step down because they're too busy. It's not gonna hurt my feelings or our feelings at all.
And that's what I mean, like, you know, there's
You know-
a commitment or like nobody should have to plan their family vacation around this meet, you know, which I did. I busted my butt to get back home from Wyoming for this meeting.
I mean, I stayed in Wyoming.
You know, but you're right, like what is too busy and what, if.
I mean, I just feel like people use it as a cop out.
It's not a priority, it's, yeah, and I think it's a fair question to ask people. Even if the email goes out to everybody, are you still interested in your commitment to this? You know, yes or no?
I mean, and there's only been one thing that last meeting was the one meeting we didn't have quorum for part of the meeting. And Jason did come here to do public comment. Then we could even vote on what he came here for. So that was the first time though, since I've been on the committee, that we haven't had quorum.
That was my other business. Any other business?
Couple suggestions, I guess. As staff, we could certainly email everybody. I could independently check with those that have a less than stellar attendance record. Or you could assign it to the chair since he's not here and ask him to do it as well.
I'll tell you. I'll ask Jason if he wants me to do it. Just-
See, and I guess my feeling is instead if they call or let someone know, which I try to do myself. Cause to me, it's like, it's a matter of respect.
Do we know if they're letting someone know? Cause I thought Geraldine was.
When they're not able to come because of work,
Yeah.
we knew Jason was gonna be gone, we knew Gabby was gonna be gone because of outside commitments. I
Yeah.
can't say if I knew.
From the main meeting when I missed, I don't know why, so.
Or, well, I guess that's so. If they, you all get the same email that says, if you're here, let me know, if you can't be, let me know, and. I don't know that everyone responds to those.
I'll connect,
Hold it, Jared. You play with the strap.
I'll connect with
Got it.
Jason to see, I'll. He's got a lot right now on his plate, so if he wants me to, I'll reach out to him.
Volleyball.
Yeah, and maybe if he reaches one and I reach the other, yep. Okay.
Yeah.
If there's nothing else. We can, is there anything else before
I'll make a motion.
No, you don't want to, I suppose.
I'm closing, I'm adjourning the meeting at 6:10.
Usually,
I like this idea.
yeah.